So now we are really pumped to welcome on somebody who is brand new to the podcast. We're getting into something a little bit different this week with baseball season coming up. We are thrilled to have on Nick from Nick's MLB Picks on Twitter joining us. One of the best in the business, in my opinion. This dude doesn't miss. Nick, thank you for joining me tonight. I know you got a lot going on. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here. This is a cool combination of things. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, people that listen to this podcast, like, what's going on? NASCAR, it's Coda this week, but I like to get different people from different sports when like big events are coming up, just because there are NASCAR fans out there, but there's also just like gamblers, right?
Yeah.
So you're it's kind of just like when you're growing up, you're playing like all sorts of sports. If you're like an athlete or whatever, or you're into whatever hobby you're into, a lot of times just not locked into one specific thing. If you're a gambler, you like getting into a lot of different stuff. And I think that having you on is going to be great because it's going to set people up. We're going to get into talking about like the 2023 season type bets. But I want to just, get to know you a little bit. And first we got to talk about how we got connected because it's just like such a weird world out there. And I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. So this one I was kind of excited to talk about. So Phil, you are the man. All right. You're kind of a little bit of a legend in our
Now
group chat
they
that
know
you've heard so
why
much
you're
about.
coming on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
you guys know Chris from the Flag Hunting Podcast. Well, Chris, a couple years ago, messaged me. He's like, "Hey, man, Full Tank with Phil, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, we've talked about him. We listen to the podcast and everything." He's like, "Well, he does these listener head-to-head things," and he was super excited. Picked out his track, ready for his matchups. Anyways, messaged us after the podcast. He was like, "Dude, being on a podcast is crazy. Like, this is awesome." Anyways, long story short, this inspired Chris and Ian, who had been talking about this a little bit, to start the Flag Hunting Podcast. Chris and Ian started the Flag Hunting Podcast. I had been doing my baseball bets for a few years to the group chat, and I saw the Flag Hunting Podcast take off. And I guess, sorry, this is a subtle plug for the Flag Hunting boys too.
Absolutely.
But they kind of took off, and I was like, I can make a Twitter account and just post my baseball bets on there. And I didn't do any interacting. It was just Twitter account, nothing but picks. And then slowly I started meeting people, building a community, and it's kind of turned into what it is now. And my name, actually, Nick's Picks, came from a buddy in the group chat, Jackson. So I'll give him a little shout out too, because he's just like, "Yeah, I've been waiting on Nick's Picks for the day." I was like, "Yeah, that's a perfect name."
It really is. I mean, you got the catchiness to it. First of all, this group chat that I've heard about for a while. I mean, you guys are like a conglomerate down there. Like, I don't know how you guys are making money hand over fist. It has to be like these guys hit Logano last night.
Yep.
You are just clearly on fire. I don't know what other, and obviously Ian is a monster at golf, but I mean, what other sports you guys got going on in this like crazy group chat?
Yeah, so I've been the baseball guy this off season. I did hockey for about 2 months. I finished actually about, I think, 27 units up in hockey. That was crazy. The last month, I will say, I was down about 10. The last month, I was kind of like, all right, this is exposing me for not actually being a hockey handicapper. So, but obviously, Chris does NASCAR. Chris has been doing some Premier League stuff. He's been doing during the World Cup, Euro. He sends us bets. We hit Italy for the Euro a year or two back, may have been longer than that. But Ian obviously does golf. Our buddy John has been doing basketball. Eric can be found on Twitter at ASG Eric. He does any kind of crazy events, like all the All-Star events. He does some Prize Picks plays, does the hot dog eating contest, some horse racing. He's the man, dude, and he's up like 20 units, maybe even more than that too. Just and he just started his account within this past year too. And then our buddy Jackson does some basketball too. And I think I mentioned John has been doing basketball, but he's too afraid to post them on Twitter, even though he does nothing but make us money.
I mean, wow, what a group chat. At some point, you guys are going to have like a monthly show just called like the group chat or something like that. Cause that's, it's just too good to pass up. Um, so you started Twitter account. How long ago was it? Was it like 2 years ago?
It was actually right before last season. So I
Okay.
started it in 2022. I started a few months before the season and just had it ready to go. And I think the night before the season, I posted my. Actually, no, I posted some spring training bets. So it was a little ways before the season.
Nice. Okay. So then getting into it, you were mentioning like you started with some hockey a little bit. Like how getting going, like what was it for you like in the very early beginning of like Nick's picks? Like you were telling me before we started recording, you got hooked up um, through mid-season with a different platform, which we'll talk about
Hmm.
in a bit here. But like early going, you were saying it's just like come up with some picks, put it out there, shut it off, and rinse and repeat. Is that really what we're talking about?
Yep, I just posted the pics and that was it. I didn't interact. I didn't like anything, didn't comment or do anything. It was just that was it. I just posted the pics on Twitter and though I was not going anywhere. And then slowly I just started following people within the baseball and gambling community and I've built some really really cool relationships with people like I just did last night a fantasy baseball draft. We did a Google Meet with a handful of guys, and it was all just guys in the baseball and just gambling community on Twitter. And I have another one tomorrow night. No, yeah, Wednesday night with more, just 14 different, all kinds of people from the gambling community. So I've really grown and just from interacting with people. So like if anybody is looking to start a gambling Twitter account, don't be like introverted on it, like interact with people, like DM people, reach out, make group chats, and yeah, it's a blast. I've had a lot of fun with the people that I met on just Twitter.
It's funny because Twitter obviously, has a big time bad rap for being, you know, a cesspool, but
Yeah.
um we've had a similar experience like on the NASCAR side of things, like working with Chris, meeting Chris in real life, like kind of becoming buddies amongst, the group of people that we've been talking with. Like it's awesome. I would not have thought that this would have been something where you can kind of meet people and enjoy it. But here we are, and it's great to hear that like you've had a similar experience in the baseball side of things. Like
Hmm.
really cool. Um, so I'm really interested to hear, and I promise, we're going to be getting into some picks here in a bit, or just talking about the upcoming season. But I am super interested in your process because it seems I was actually with Derek Yoder watching the race yesterday. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
Derek very well, but I said to him, I got Nick coming on, and like just doing the race for NASCAR each week, like I feel like that takes a lot out of me, like exhausting. I can't imagine every day. And you have so many like different types of bets. It's just like wild. So I'm so anxious to hear like kind of what your mindset is. Like, how do you get like centered to like start? Okay, tomorrow's Tuesday, March 21st. What's the slate? How do I find where I'm zooming in on? You know what I mean? If that question makes sense.
Yeah, and Chris and Ian said the same thing. They're like, once a week is too much as it is. Like every day is nuts.
It's
And
crazy. And you're
and
doing spring training.
I'm doing spring training. Yeah, today was awful, but spring training's been pretty good to me. So everything's a roller coaster. But yeah, like my my initial process is like just sit down, look at the slate, look at all the pitchers, see who's playing who, and see where they're playing. I like to check out lefties too. I initially will just see okay who's a lefty, and I'll go from there because some teams have a lot of success versus lefties, and it's really an overwhelming amount of things. So I'll try to abbreviate it. Um, But like you said, different types of bets. Like I'll do first 5 inning bets, right? Either first five, money line, run line, over under. Then you have full game bets that I do. You have your full game over unders, your money lines, run lines. I do some hitter props. I don't like to do total bases props. If I can find like over 0.5 hits, I like to do those if there's some good value. Pitcher props. I love to do strikeout props. Mostly overs. I've had some really bad luck with unders on strikeout props. Just don't have a great feel for it. Last year I started doing some stolen base props. It's a lot of stuff, like some no run first inning, yes run first inning. Those are pretty popular on Twitter, but I don't go crazy with them. Most of my bets are first 5 innings or some run lines. I don't typically bet minus 1.5. Most of my run line bets will be plus 1.5 rather than the minus 1.5.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, if you had a number that, like, is kind of your threshold, like something you're not going to go past. Like, you have a prop or a bet that you're interested in. You find it, and then you look at the odds, and what is like your threshold there of like, oh, that's too much for me.
Yeah, so I don't go past minus 180, and that's even steep for me. And a lot of people are like, "Well, that's way too deep." But most people don't go past 135 ish. If it is like something minus 180, I won't make it more than a 1 unit play, and it's something that I'm absolutely sure of, you know. And obviously they miss sometimes, but those plays, if I play a minus 180, a lot of times my buddies will just parlay it with something else,
Yep.
but those plays I'm usually pretty sure of, and I don't do any parlays. So if you're into parlays, I'm not your guy. I do mostly everything straight. Like if there's something that I really like, I'll do a 2-teamer, but I don't do any crazy long shot parlays or anything like that. And as far as like my process goes, I was just telling you before we got on. I actually just organized my tabs on Google Chrome, but I have about 30 tabs that stay open constantly year round. Like I just put them into folders. So I have my strikeout props folder, where I have something from teamrankings.com. I have Baseball Savant open, pitcher list, Fangraphs. I have my offense tab, which is team offense, individual players. I have stuff from Fangraphs and baseballreference.com. I have my first 5 innings tab. I have just trends. I love this tab actually. It has some teams who just get lucky and cover a ton. You know, it doesn't, not necessarily luck, but I have my runs first inning, my stolen bases folder, defensive stats, bullpen stats, park factors, weather, and lineups. And then I have my sports books tabs or my folder. So those are all my different folders for all my different resources that I use. And my favorite resource that I spend most of my day on is Fangraphs, Pitcher List, Baseball Savant, and teamrankings.com. Those are like the go-tos typically.
It's a lot of variables, a lot of metrics. I mean, it's fantastic that, I mean, this is hearing that is overwhelming to me. Like, I'm a fan of baseball, love it, but that's why like these little niche sectors of Twitter exist, because like you're putting in the work, you're putting in the effort, you're giving things out like for free. Um, a lot of the times, like that's awesome. Like this is what, makes me really enjoy Twitter, is because like I would never be able to do that. And even if I had that ability to like look at all that stuff, I don't think I'd be able to put it all together like you are doing. And it's just crazy. Like that's awesome
And
to hear.
yeah, it's definitely hard. It's a lot of stuff, but I'm still obviously adding to it, and I'm sure it'd be easier if I just had like a set model. But I'm too much of a fan to do that, you know, to have like a baseball model, and not knocking anybody who has models. Chris and Ian make a ton of money with their models. Me, it's just like with baseball being every day, a model is not gonna fit a team who has been slumping for 2 weeks straight, you know?
Mhm.
And so there's just way, like you said, there's a lot of variables. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I figured out the best way to do it. I mean, I'm going to have days where you're going to see me reverse sweeping 0-6 minus 6-7 units on a day. Like that's just going to happen. I'm going to be real. But I might turn around the next day and go 7-0 and make that money back. But I try not to get too high or too low on any of that. Like your bad days are going to happen. Something that I found when I am just ice cold, and I'm not a huge believer in being hot or cold. I mean, baseball is every day. Like I always say to people, like rent is due every day. Like you're not like, yeah, you might be up 100 units on the year. Doesn't care, or like nobody cares on the next slate. Like if you go 0-6 on the next slate, that doesn't matter. You gotta do it every day. So it's not like you're resting on your laurels, I think is what people say. Um, but yeah, so when I am cold though, if I'm just having a stretch of just cannot hit myself out of a wet paper bag, I just go with money lines, just straight money lines, keep it simple, 50-50 plays, and use my process through that and not try to get cute and try to get myself out of a little cold stretch, quote unquote.
Makes a ton of sense. I mean, and you mentioned like the everyday thing. That's a scenario where it is probably beneficial in comparison to the golf or NASCAR or these like weekly sports because like I had a bit of a rough day yesterday, I would say, and I got to wait a whole week to start like dissecting everything and getting out there and seeing the result. Where have a bad day, shake it off, get back at it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a positive to it. But the work is the work ethic is unmatched. Just hearing everything you're saying, it's truly unbelievable. Um, you mentioned being a fan. Like I wanted to ask you this to get going. Do you have a favorite team at this point, or is it just whoever's making you money?
No, I'm a diehard Boston sports fan. So some
Okay.
people some people probably be clicking the pause and exit button after hearing that. But yeah, I grew up a huge Boston sports fanatic. That's actually um, my little pathway to this was just being obsessed with sports as a little kid. As most people, I'm sure that are listening were like this, and I got into doing fantasy sports. Went crazy with that. Those turned into dynasty leagues. That turned into betting on the games, and that turned into where I'm at. And it's just like figuring out. It's like this isn't really work for me, I love looking at a slate of games and just knowing like I have an edge here because of all of the stats that I look at daily and because of the knowledge that I have. Whereas like some people could sit down at a slot machine and just gamble that away. Like to me, this isn't gambling. It's using my knowledge and my passion to make money.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. You're making a very educated guess, but
Yeah.
it's more so uh, directed with a lot of facts and if things don't go your way, we talk about on the NASCAR betting preview show, like were you the bet may have not won, but you
Mm-hmm.
can still analyze it and say, were you correct in what
Yep.
you were doing? And if you can say yes, then you're on the right side of things. Not worth beating yourself up. Um, let's talk about last year just briefly, because you know I'm obviously I got my Phillies World Series drawn
Yep.
on here. You were phenomenal. Like once we got connected on Twitter, like Nick would hit me up on the side, like in a DM saying like Phillies first five or, over under Phillies over three and a
Yep.
half in the first 5 innings. Like, and they would always hit. I don't think you ever sent me a DM that didn't hit about like the Phillies, which
Yeah.
I always really appreciated that. That was so cool.
I don't know if I think I sent you one loser in the playoffs. That was like it. But I,
But the
I don't think
playoffs are different. It's so
yeah, and
crazy.
I was actually just like I have a little note here about my performance last year. Is my playoff record was horrible. I really should have just sat the playoffs out, but I couldn't help myself. But yeah, that was fun. I was like, well, Phil is a Phillies fan. If I have a Phillies play that I absolutely love, I'm gonna send it his way. And like you said, I don't think any of them lost except towards the end of the season. But last season was a blast. My record, it might be overwhelming to hear, but it was 505 wins, 465 losses, 38 pushes, and that was plus 51.35 units.
Wow.
And so
Truly fantastic.
it was a fun year. It really was. I was treading water the first half, full disclosure. But I hit Sandy Alcantara 18-1 National League Cy Young. I hit Justin Verlander 12-1 American League Cy Young. And I hit Julio Rodriguez 6.5-1 for American League Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
So those were a nice boost. And my futures card was fun. Although what did tank me quite a bit is I put 5 units on the Cardinals to miss the playoffs. And
wow.
That was not great.
Not great, yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually my preseason lock of the year was 5 units. And I don't do 5-unit plays. My max play is 3 units. And if you see on Twitter, I'll post the lock of the day. No such thing as a lock in baseball. I was 21-14 on them last year. The year before that, I was actually much better on them. This year was kind of a down year for the locks, but they are 3-unit plays. I don't do anything more than 3 units. So
interesting. So the Cardinals, because my question about 2022 is going to be kind of based around like the way the season played out for the teams in general. Was there a team that kind of surprised you? Obviously the Cardinals, if you're fading them and them, winning their division, that was a bit of a surprise, I guess. Were you surprised at all? And do you think that this is going to be a kind of similar trend? Like they expanded the playoffs a little bit. That's how the Phillies made it in. The Phillies got hot, went on a run from the 7 spot. Do you think that that's an anomaly, or do you think we're going to see more of that, like as the seasons move forward here? And I know that's kind of an impossible question to answer, but it just, seems like the more they expand the playoffs, like these teams are not like shitty teams. They're legitimate baseball teams and could easily go on a run, but nobody was really giving them or really the Padres any shot going into the postseason. So did that take you by surprise, or were you kind of like, no, I could see that?
So yes and no. So I actually privately had a Phillies National League Champions ticket last year. I didn't post it. I sent it to Chris preseason. I was like, man, the Phillies really bolstered their bullpen. They lost a ton. They blew a ton of saves in 2021. I really like what they did. I like the Castellanos signing, even though he kind of flopped. But I kind of just threw a unit on that. So that one hit. That was great. But I didn't get to take credit for it since I didn't post it. The Padres were my National League champions pick. So my official National League champs pick. So that kind of hurt that I privately bet the Phillies, but publicly bet the Padres. And I was all in on the Padres last year. I thought that was the year that they had really been setting their franchise up for. And it kind of seems like it's going to all come together this year. So we could talk about later that I don't have an official World Series pick this year. I don't have an official National League champs pick. I don't have an American League champs pick. Not yet, at least. Nothing official. But a team that did surprise me was the Orioles. Obviously, they surprised a lot of people. Last year, I had Orioles under 61.5 wins, which is so low. That's how confident I was at them just being awful. But their new wall and left field just really, really improved their pitching staff, and they played outstanding defense. They were top 5 in just about every defensive metric. And Adley came up and just did wonders for their pitching staff, and they were that was exciting to watch. But there's definitely going to be some surprising teams. Listening to the Athletic podcast throughout the postseason, they just analyze. They're like, listen, guys, this is luck, and when it comes down to it, it's who gets hot at the right time. You see it every year. The best team, look, that Dodgers team was absolutely loaded. and they get eliminated by the little brother Padres, And I've discussed this with people with my postseason bets and my futures. These bets, it's not who is the better team. It's who can win a 3-game series, who can win a 5-game series, who can win a 7-game series. And when you look at that, you have your Phillies, you have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Those are two outstanding arms as a 1-2 punch. As their third arm, they had Ranger Suarez, who got hot at the right time. When his stuff is working, everybody's just mashing the ball straight into the ground. And the Phillies defense, not a very good defense, but they've picked it up and they figured it out when it mattered. Like you listened to the Castellanos interview. He's like, yeah, all year I kind of just was not really putting in a ton of effort, but the playoffs, that's when I play good defense. That was kind of weird to hear, but it's kind of true,
Yeah. The other thing, as you're talking about, like kind of recapping like the season, when you're trying to make picks, I was looking at the lines earlier today, and what was going through my mind, and I just want to see if you kind of feel like this is true or not, but like trying to make a pick right now is super difficult, obviously. But what was going through my mind was trying to think about how many teams from a division would make the playoffs. Because if you look at what happened to the Dodgers, you look at what happened to the Braves, I feel like the advantage goes to the little brother team or the team that's below, So if you've got 3 teams in a division like the NL East had last year, or, the Dodgers and the Padres,
Mm-hmm.
you see those guys. Like the Padres saw the Dodgers a million times. Phillies saw the Braves a million times. That opens the door for a quote unquote upset. So it's almost like you're trying to play these like chess pieces like so far out, like who's going to make the playoffs, and then who could maybe, because they know each other so well, steal a series.
Yeah.
It's tough to do, but it feels like that is the recipe for, moving
Mm-hmm.
on.
Last year, I think it was the divisional rounds. It was Cleveland versus New York, Seattle versus Houston, Philadelphia versus Atlanta, right? Or was that, yeah? And then the Dodgers versus Padres. So I went and posted on Twitter all 4 underdogs for the series, and I had a bunch of people like in my comments are saying like, this is stupid, dude. You're just like, this doesn't make any sense. And I put in the post like, I'm not just randomly putting this. And I went 2-2, and if you remember, Seattle almost won just about every game in that series. They lost the first game to a Yordan Alvarez, just killer off of I don't know if Robbie Ray was the first game or whenever it was, but like every game they were into, they lost an 18-inning game. Like everything was so close, and I just looked at all those teams and how they matched up, and I was like, all these dogs could win, and if we go 2-2, we're gonna be green, and that's what this is about. Yes, it's baseball, but it's also about making money too, And the Cleveland series, I mean, there was a point where Yankees fans, the sky was falling. They were like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna lose to Cleveland." And they had them on their toes too. So it's the playoffs; anything can happen, like you said.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to pick, World Series, like you said, but let's get into some conversation around season bets, because there are, we talked about it on the NASCAR side of things. It's pretty straightforward with NASCAR. It's, championship picks and then season win totals. Sometimes you get the head to heads, but this season in NASCAR, there was not that many. Complete opposite. I mean, this is what happens when you get a sport that's been around on these sports books for a really long time. They get a lot of money coming in. There are a million different ways that we could take this, Nick. So I'm going to try to guide us in a certain way. Like I'm going to play the naive kind of guy, trying to, get into this a little bit here. And I want you to steer me in the right direction. But for me, outside of like, okay, who's going to win the World Series? As a fan, doesn't matter what fan you're a team of or what team you're a fan of, I go to win totals to start. Like that's also like my barometer of like, okay, this is who Vegas thinks is legitimate. What's the number? do you think that that's a good number or not? Yes or no? And I only bet over. I would never bet under for a team that I care about. So, is that a place that you start? Like, do you get into the season win total bets at all? And what's your process there?
That is actually the first thing I do as well, is the teams. When the team props come out, I go crazy on a roster resource on Fangraphs. Look into the steamer projections, zips, the bat X, and there's one more that I'm totally blanking on. But there's all these different projection systems. You have your Fangraphs projected WAR, and obviously all these projections don't mean a whole lot. But I really just dig into roster construction. How did they do last year? What were all these different? What did they stink at? How did they do in their off season to patch that up? Um, so yeah, it's also just a good foundation to get yourself set up to do the other things. Like, okay, I broke down all of these teams. I know all these players and have like a read on how they're going to be for the season and just my opinions and whatnot. And so then after I do the team props, then I can get into the player props, can get into the awards and all of that and whatnot.
So it feeds, yeah, it's your starting point, it's your
Mm-hmm.
foundation for then leading you down the path of, okay, now I can get into this prop. And because I've done my research on the win totals, I know where I'm going. I already have my gut feelings. I already have my, you know, uh, hypothesis on how the season should play out,
Mm-hmm.
as these teams are going to go over under. So I have, I don't know. Do you mind if I throw some of the win totals up here? I'm getting
Yeah,
this
yeah,
on
go for it.
DraftKings if you don't mind. I'll add this. Anybody that's on YouTube watching this, but we got some season win totals here. And is there a team that kind of stands out? Like one thing that went to my mind was like I like to go to the top team and the bottom team. So I
Uh-huh.
would assume that that's the Dodgers and the Nationals. I mean, you mentioned how the Orioles were horrible last year with their win total 59.5 for Washington. I mean, that's like historically bad, right? Like,
Yeah, and
is there a chance that they go under that?
no, actually like what Washington did this offseason. Yeah, they're not going to compete for anything, but 60 wins is a bit ridiculous. I haven't clicked anything for Washington. There's a lot of teams that I just don't have a great feel for, you know.
Hmm.
So I just steer clear of it, and it's like most of these are -110 in that range, and I'm not gonna sit on a -110 if I don't have a great feeling about it or anything to back it up. Yeah, Oakland is definitely their line is probably 59.5 as well. That's 60.5. Yeah. See, I don't think Oakland can win 60 games this year. This might be the worst baseball team ever assembled in the history of ever. It's so bad. It's like the movie Major League where the owner is trying to get them to move to, I think it's Florida. So she just intentionally puts a terrible team. They're trying to move to Vegas. I don't think they have their lease renewed with the Coliseum. And the team is a
Wow.
mess. All their prospects stink. They're not top heavy. It's a hot mess right now, and it kind of stinks because I've always liked Oakland.
I mean, they're essentially the farm system for the rest of the MLB that like because they just build good players and then give them away
Yeah.
for what feels like next to nothing. So
So
that the odds would agree with you there, -120, but I mean that is a good combination of reasons there to take the under in that one. Um, See, I was trying to see. We'll get to like the head to heads in just a second, but
mhm.
the head to heads, like it would be nice to be able to kind of create your own, like Oakland versus Washington, right?
Yeah, that one would
That would
be.
be fun. They
Yeah.
typically keep them like in the same division or whatnot. But um, how about the Dodgers? I mean, let's go to the top of the board. 95. Um, they're plus money to go over 95. Are they due for a little bit of aggression, or are they still the Dodgers?
Yeah, so I'm not wild about the Dodgers actually this year. Last year I was on their over. I think their win total was like 99 last year. and I
Wow.
put 2 units or 1 or 2 units on them going over because they're just so good. But I kind of have, it's not necessarily a hot take on the Dodgers, but it's kind of an interesting one. And if you're kind of out of the MLB world, this could be a little bit of an edge for you. There are odds for this somewhere, but I think the Dodgers, and it's not necessarily a secret, I think they're kind of just gearing up this season to just make a ridiculous offer to Shohei Ohtani this offseason because he's going to be a free agent.
Wow.
They lost Max Scherzer last year. They just, I mean, they didn't re-sign him. They just lost Trey Turner, and they had this great batch of prospects led by Miguel Vargas and Gavin Lux. Obviously, he's out for the year. This was before this, but it just seemed like they were kind of just giving their prospects the keys because the Dodgers are just such a well-oiled machine of like they sign the big guys, they sign the Betts, they sign the Freeman, but then they still have that bottom end of the salary cap filled out by all these different guys who contribute, and the Astros are the same way. And they have Mookie and then Freeman, and it's pretty thin after that. They let go of Justin Turner. They got JD, but I think JD's kind of on the decline. I mean, that's not necessarily a hot take or anything. I love JD Martinez, but I think that this year is going to be down. They're missing Walker Buehler. They're going to have Dustin May on a little bit of restriction, but I don't know if they'll be able to do that. It's just their pitching is the thinnest I think it's ever been. Lost Tyler Anderson, but they created him.
Well, I mean, that's fantastic information, and I, being outside the baseball world, I guess, compared to you, like that's not something I've thought about going after Otani. So that's good stuff. That's reason to take the under.
Now I'm not. That's not me. What's it like? Suggesting like, yeah, bet that under. That's just one of those teams
Yes,
I don't have a great feel for, so I'm just not touching the Dodgers win total,
totally understandable. Yeah, I'm not gonna coax you know lock of the year
Yeah,
from you
yeah.
here. Lock it in. This is an official Knicks
Mhm.
pick, but just hearing that information, people can do what they want with it in
Mhm.
their own minds. And like for someone who might want to cheer against the Dodgers, that is all the reason to do it.
And
Um,
real quick, before we keep going with more of these team win totals, just something like for anybody who does want to make their own bets for this and just be creative and do your own thing. A small little thing I have added to this kind of year-long formula for team totals is there is a schedule realignment this year. For any of you guys who don't know, in the past, divisional opponents played each other 19 times each. So, like the Red Sox played the Yankees 19 times last year. This year, I believe it's down to 13. I could be wrong on that. I think it's 13. So the Central divisions, I'm, if anything, on unders for those teams because the American League Central and the National League Central are so weak. They're going to be playing every team in baseball this year. They're not going to get to play those bottom teams so often. So that's something to think about. And then also another thing is defensive metrics. It doesn't seem like you would put it into any kind of equation for making these team bets, but if you go to Baseball Savant, you can look at outs above average, and then there's a website called fieldingbible.com is one of my favorite sites. You can find team defensive runs saved. So you have defensive runs saved, which is DRS, and then outs above average, that's OAA. And Phil, could I give you 3 guesses? Play a little game here real quick. Could I give you
sure.
3 guesses to think of the number one team in outs above average last year?
Outs above average. Man, I'm gonna guess because we're playing this game. It's not somebody that we would think. So I'm gonna go with the Marlins.
No, the Marlins were 12th.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Maybe Seattle.
No, Seattle was 15th.
Oh boy, I don't know. I'm making an ass of myself. All right, so I got one more guess. I mean, I'll take the Phillies. I don't know.
The Phillies were 29th.
Yeah, I didn't think they were good, but but it was kind of I felt like I was being led in that direction.
So
So
actually,
go ahead.
The Phillies had minus 34 outs above average. The only team worse than them was Washington at minus 51. That was crazy. But the
That's
Arizona
wild.
Diamondbacks had 46 outs above average. Team that was second had 36 was Houston.
Holy shit.
So that was kind of interesting. So I'm on the Diamondbacks win total over this year. I think it's 73 and a half, 74 and a half. Can't remember, but I have one unit on the Diamondbacks win total over.
I'm scrolling here. Let me
Because
find them.
playing good defense, it builds confidence in your pitching staff. They can pitch to contact more. And when you have guys that do pitch to contact, like some of their pitching staff, that makes a huge difference. And I know there's no confidence meter on any of these websites, but again, that's just one of these things that goes into handicapping these games is how is the dugout and like the culture of a team, you know?
And what kind of I'm assuming they didn't have much turnover then. If we're basing, part of the construction of the pick here for the win total over on that, we were assuming they would be at a similar clip this year. What's their turnover rate on their roster? Like, I'm assuming it's pretty similar then.
So they're actually so let me pull 2022 up real quick. They're getting one of the most exciting prospects in baseball in Corbin Carroll. He's going to be up for most of the year. They just sent down one of their top pitching prospects in Brandon Pfaadt, who I'm excited for. But the Diamondbacks last year, they won 74 games. And I got their win total at, I think, 74 and a half, which I'd have to find it. And I guess it's, what is it on DraftKings, 75 and a half?
Yeah.
So I would still probably take the over on 75 and a half. But like I said, they won 74 games last year. They're getting Corbin Carroll up. Their their defensive metrics were outstanding, and their schedule is getting way easier. They're going to play the Dodgers 6 less times. They're going to play the Padres 6 less times. And yeah, you'd say, oh, well, they're not going to play the Rockies as much too. Playing in Coors Field is not is a total crapshoot. There's no guarantee that you're going to win in Coors Field. The Rockies always have a very good record at home. So
I am sold on this. This is fantastic analysis and the exact reason why I was looking forward to talking with you. Like that, the what goes into landing on them. That's exactly the kind of stuff I was hoping to hear. So that's great. Diamondbacks. I've actually seen for whatever reason. I don't know if like the gambling gods were kind of out there, but my social media feed has just been like flooded with like Diamondbacks like social media shit. So like them doing like fun quirky stuff like
yeah.
so hey, I'm being told Diamondbacks a number of different ways here, so I like it. Yeah, good stuff. How about before we I mean we have a number of different things here we could touch on. And I don't want to take too much of your time because you have a new
Yeah.
baby.
No,
But
I'm good to go. He's out.
the thing I just noticed as we were scrolling here, it said the best record in baseball here, over 105 and a half wins were under 105. So you're basically betting that no team would get that if you take the under. Is that a ridiculous bet to even entertain because it's just so hard to predict like who's going to
Yeah,
be hot?
so
Because
I
go ahead.
personally won't be betting that over or under, but I would kind of lean the under on that. I don't like last year I would have probably bet the over on that because of the Dodgers. I mean, it's one of the best teams ever assembled last year. And the Astros hit the over on that. Was it 105.5?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just don't think there's one juggernaut this year. I would lean the under on that,
Yeah. It
but
just
I'm
seems like
not going to be playing that.
strange. It seems like a strange number because like where my mind was going is like, okay, let's look at what Houston's is. Let's look at what the Dodgers are. Let's look at the Yankees.
Hmm.
And they're all like 95 or you see the Yankees 93 right there. So that's 10 more wins for the best teams in baseball according to Vegas. That just seems like a strange selection for their number. So that's where I was like, oh, maybe that's
Yeah,
interesting. But
that one. Like I said, I wouldn't be playing that one, but if I did, I would be on the under for that for sure.
cool. So how about another area? I'll let you kind of steer me. I mean,
Okay.
there's a bunch of different types. Like I was saying, anybody that's watching this, like I could click on any of these tabs here. I mean, things that I was looking into myself were the win totals head to head. I play that with the Phillies as well. Last year they had a spread against the Pirates. They were like minus 21.5 against the Pirates.
Oh wow.
I think they still hit that. So anything in that field, or we've got like season series
Yeah,
for the year. So I found those pretty interesting.
I've seen the season series ones. No, but I'm not playing any of these. Just as far as the team ones, I have um, two favorite plays, or I guess I'll go with three. My lock of the year, my 3 unit play for the year is the Tampa Bay Rays or Tampa Bay Rays over 88.5 wins. That
Wow.
is that is my max play of the year. And then I have two
Holy cow.
units on the Marlins over 67.5 wins. And I could do an entire podcast on the Marlins this year. I'm very excited for them. And this isn't like me saying, yeah, the Marlins are going to make the playoffs and win the World Series. I'm about 67.5 wins. So, and then I actually have, you're not going to like this one, Phil. I apologize. I have Braves National League East champions at plus 130. They're plus 125 now on most places, but yeah,
That's fine. I mean, to be honest with you, I that doesn't bother me whatsoever. Seeing what we saw last year, like you don't have to win your division to
yeah,
make an impact in the postseason.
hmm,
But to be honest, I was looking at they have a thing that's selecting the division straight. So who's going to finish 1, 2, and 3.
yeah,
And I was thrown in like, it was, I had the Braves, Phillies, and Marlins actually. Like
okay,
1, 2, 3. You're getting a good clip there. I know I don't have it up on the screen this second because it's kind of tough to find, but yeah, like those types of bets, kind of interesting to see. It's funny that you mentioned the Marlins. So what was their number? Did you say their number was 67?
67.5. I don't know
I mean,
if it's
that's craziness. They're they're not that bad. That's what 7 wins better than
oh wait,
the
did I
Nationals.
I'm so I said 67.5, right?
Yes,
I don't know why I said 67.5. 75.5. I must have had a
75.5.
yeah,
Okay,
I must have a typo here. I do. That's definitely a typo. Yeah, 75.5. So they didn't hit that last year. Last year they won 69 games, but I have a whole book on the Marlins basically this year, getting to I said 75.5. Now I'm all thrown off on my notes here because I made a little typo there. I'm gonna change
so
that now.
but I mean, I don't hate that pick either. Like if I'm kind of just putting Phantom aside, like the Marlins
Hmm.
have been pesky, at least for the Phillies, for years, and they have this weird thing where like they kind of disappear for a little while, and then when they come alive in a big way. Like they've won World Series. So I can see the Marlins doing something. I mean, they've got Alcantara, and we just lost Gene Segura. He's going down there. He's a
Hmm.
solid player, a good locker room guy for a team like that. Who really their fan base doesn't really have any real expectation, which I think is kind of a positive thing when you're a team like that. So I could see the Marlins
And I
being
have
somebody.
this is a spoiler for later if we talk about awards, but their number two pitcher, and some wouldn't even say he's their number two, maybe number three, but Jesus Luzardo is one of my Cy Young picks for the National League. 75-1, Jesus
Wow.
Luzardo to win the National League Cy Young. I am in love with Jesus Luzardo. Their rotation is loaded. They have Sandy, who was a unanimous National League Cy Young Award winner. Edward Cabrera, which I celebrate weekly. Hashtag King Eddie Day is what I nicknamed him, as King Eddie. Trevor Rogers, who was bad last year, but in 2021 was outstanding, and things are not going to be as bad in 2023 for Trevor Rogers. They signed Johnny Cueto. They have Braxton Garrett as their potential injury guy to come up because they have had a lot of injury problems in their rotation. Yuri Perez is a top pitching prospect they have. And I don't know if you remember Sixto Sanchez, but he still exists from that 2020 playoff run. Sixto has been getting into shape. There have been Sixto sightings lately. So he could potentially come out of the bullpen and contribute to that team this year.
I very much remember Sixto Sanchez because he was either like traded from the Phillies or
he was a Phillies prospect.
Yeah, he was a Phillies prospect, and it's all the radio would talk about for months.
I believe that was the Realmuto trade.
Okay, yeah, maybe that was Realmuto, and then he came out. Yeah, so when Realmuto was a Philly, that was his like breakout season. Yeah, so Sixto, if he's in shape, that lineup is going to be tough, and that's making me thankful that they're not facing the divisional teams as many.
That's another thing is I have written down here is like 57 of their games last year was against Atlanta, Philadelphia, and New York Mets. Now this year it's just gonna be 39.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to think about. I mean, I wasn't really aware of that at all, actually. I was looking at the schedule earlier and didn't put that together. I was just more so saying to myself, like, man, the Phillies aren't playing any divisional games for like the first month and a half, and then all of a sudden it's boom, division. So I was not putting it together that they're playing less overall. So that's pretty interesting. Here's one: fewest wins. You took Oakland, so you got. How about this? This is kind of your head-to-head, right? Fewest regular season wins, rather than taking the under in the Oakland season win total. What about just plus 330 for Oakland?
I've been thinking about it, and I don't know why Washington has is plus 250 and Oakland is plus 330. Oakland is so much worse than Washington, and Washington kind of has an okay bullpen. They have some solid arms, and their pitching is not good. Their starting pitching, but like they've been loading up on top end prospects that a lot of them are ready to be up. Like they got a king's ransom for Juan Soto. They traded Scherzer, they traded Trey Turner. So they have a lot of these prospects who are ready to go and ready to contribute. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I might actually play Oakland. I might add that to my card. Is the Oakland to have the fewest regular season wins.
Yeah, plus 330 is definitely more juicy. I mean, if we think that they're going to be under 59 or whatever they were, might be tougher for some of these other teams to hit that number. So, yeah, I would definitely be all in on that. I'm struggling to kind of find my way through here on the UI of the website to try to pull up some of the picks that I wanted to bring up, but that's just because there are so damn many of them. So how about to make the playoffs? Did you have anything in this category? You know, you mentioned a team like the Marlins, like, you know, are they going to surprise some people and sneak in, or is there somebody, you know, in a different division that you kind of have your eyes on? Maybe stealing it, like the Central, right? That's in both leagues, like you mentioned, it's a shit show constantly.
Yeah.
Is there a team that might surprise some people there to make the playoffs at a good number here? Because my mind goes to, you know, what's the plus money?
Yeah.
That I don't like these minus 550s and even for the
I don't
Phillies,
touch any
like,
of those.
you know, I'm not trying to make this a full Phillies podcast here,
Yeah.
but like, you know, I go to look at that number and it's minus something, I believe, and yeah, minus 135, and I think that's sketch. So, where's your mind go for this?
DraftKings actually has a better number than I got on Tampa to make the playoffs. I have yes at minus 165. So that one's on DraftKings minus 155. I have a unit on Tampa making the playoffs. I'm in love with Tampa this year. So I'm all in on them. and to make the playoffs. And these odds have changed a little bit. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I got the Twins when these odds came out to win the American League Central at plus 300. I have a half unit on the Twins to win the AL Central. I think the Twins had an awesome offseason. They struggled a lot with injuries last year. They're actually sixth in American League team WAR projections. They traded for Pablo Lopez. They needed another arm. Like I said, they had horrible injury luck last year. They traded for Tyler Mahle. He's going to be out of Great American Ballpark. He finally has a normal baseball park to pitch in. They have a solid bullpen, and they just made some really small upgrades to their roster this offseason. And obviously they re-signed Carlos Correa. And I just think it's a really winnable division. Cleveland overperformed last year by a lot, and I'm not sold on Cleveland's rotation. The White Sox, I'm kind of just done with. They none of them can stay healthy. They've had a lot of problems out of their control too. Like Liam Hendricks has lymphoma, which is awful. He's a superstar closer, and
That's horrible.
They're gonna struggle closing out games this year. And then you have Mike Clevenger, who he just got cleared in this case, but there was some domestic abuse cases looming over him. And it's just really bad vibes from Chicago again this year. So that's why I'm on the Twins. And it was plus 300. I don't think it's plus 300 anymore. Wherever you can find the best number on that, I would throw a half unit on that. But nothing crazy. Like if it's plus 150 somewhere, I wouldn't be touching that. So on DraftKings, yeah, 215, I would take it. 215 Twins to win the AL Central.
Yeah, I mean, the place my mind goes is we were just on the previous screen of to make the playoffs, and I'd have to imagine that in order for any of these teams to make the playoffs, you're going to have to win the division. So
That's
why
exactly.
take plus 115 on the other screen?
Mm-hmm.
This is the way that they're going to get there. So
Yep,
yeah, it's good stuff.
That's exactly why I'm on that play. It's like there's not going to be a wild card team coming out of either Central Division, I don't think. So that's why I was just like, all right, if they're going to make the playoffs, they have to win the division. So that's how I'm playing that.
Awesome. How about some more proppy stuff? I don't know if you dip into this very often, but things like last undefeated team. I mean, let's see, last team to win, team to start 5-0, anything in that like realm. And I was just writing those notes down from earlier. I mean, I'd have to find them here on the screen, but do you get into any of that stuff, or are you like, that's for the birds?
I typically don't, but excuse me. I was bored one day. Just I had my team card done, and I had been digging into all these teams. I was like, well, these odds just kind of got posted, so I'll kind of look into some things. And I actually did click one, and it's plus 950 on the book I use, and so it's first to 10 wins. So if you could find
10 wins, yeah, okay, race to 10 wins. Here it is.
Yep. So let's see. Okay, so yeah, they're plus 900 on DraftKings, so they're plus 950 on my book. They're 8-1 on other books, but it's Tampa Bay Rays. Brought them up a lot. Tampa's opening schedule. Are you ready for this, Phil?
I'm ready. I am ready.
They play 3 games at Tropicana versus the Detroit Tigers.
Okay.
They go to Washington, D.C. for a 3-game series to play the Nationals. They go back to the Trop to play a 3-game series versus the Oakland Athletics.
Holy mackerel.
And then they stay in the Trop and they play the Red Sox, who they were 12-7 against last year. And then if they don't get it done in that stretch of games, they go to Toronto, who they also had a winning record against last year. They were 10-8 against. So I have a half unit on Tampa to win the race to 10 wins. And that's a bet I'm really excited about. It's just a quick 10-game or 15-game sweat, and it could pay out pretty early in the season. So I'm all in on Tampa. They have that schedule. It just makes way too much sense.
I am so pumped about this because when I was looking at this earlier, I was like, damn, this is a tough bet to try to analyze because you'd have to do exactly what you just did. Lay out who the teams are playing, and you're going to have to catch a team that's getting lucky and playing against, some teams from last year who were terrible. And there it is. Like There it is, right
Yep.
there. That schedule is very, very doable. So 9-1 is damn good. I think
Yeah.
I'll be
I
tailing
mean,
that one as
that's
well.
that's better than you can get some teams to win the World Series, and you can get it in potentially 10, 11, 12 days.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I like that a lot. Um, fantastic. That schedule is just a cakewalk.
Yep.
Who?
And it's
How
a
does
great
that
team.
become allowed?
It's not even like we're talking about, I don't know, the Angels playing that schedule. It's the Rays. I
Yeah, it's a
mean,
good team.
they win games. That's like they don't care about having the sexiest players. It's just how do we get outs? How do we get runs? It's like the standard Moneyball formula. You know, they don't value the big shiny things. They value scoring runs, getting outs, and winning games.
I like that. Um, I'm going to throw one out here to you and then kind of see. I mean, the answer might be no, you haven't really looked into this
Hmm.
very much. But uh, one bet that I found interesting, if I can find it on here, was the team futures. It's the regular season series. So I think I mentioned it a little bit ago. And the thing that I went to was, again, I'm going to use the Phillies as a barometer here, but I'm opening up to you to see if there's anything else like this out there against the Braves. The
Hmm.
Braves were minus 140, Phillies were plus money in the season win total matchup against each other, the season series. Um, the Phillies against the Braves over the past like 2.5 years, going in, I think it was like going into the last month of the season last year, they were like 28 and 28. Like they were just straight up, you know, tied going into the last month of the last season. And then obviously the Phillies beat them in the playoffs. Um, so the books would make it seem like, that's a lot because the Braves are the big dogs in the division, but they play each other very tight. And it's whoever's home really wins that 3-game stretch or 4-game stretch. Um, so, A, is that a bad bet? B, do you know of anything else like that where like in the league there are two teams who are, tight playing against each other, and we might be able to see some value out there, or like I said, you might not have looked into that, and you might not know the answer.
So that's an interesting one. And I use baseballreference.com for these matchups, and you can use teamrankings.com too. But you can see their head to head schedules. And I'm trying to pull up the Braves and the Phillies from last year, but I'm having a hard time finding it kind of on the spot. But but yeah, these are definitely handicapable, I guess is the word I'll use. But like earlier today I was digging into some of these things. So it's kind of funny you bring it up. I think the Red Sox were like 2-17 versus the Blue Jays last year, and the run differential was like in the 70s. It was insane. I have to look it up to see it again, but it was absolutely insane. So that is something that you can find. But
Okay.
let's see.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about there, 170, minus 170 for the Braves. I just feel like, in a situation like that, that's not a lock as minus 170 would
Yeah,
lead you to believe. Um, so you said it was the Red Sox versus the Blue Jays. See if I can
yeah.
find if those
I'd
guys
like
are
to see what
available here.
what that matchup is.
Okay, let's see if here we go. Red Sox are plus 165. Blue Jays are minus 200.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so Toronto they won. So yeah, the Red Sox. I have it here. The Red Sox won 3 games. Toronto won 16,
That is
and
crazy.
Boston allowed 125 runs and just scored 55 versus Toronto. So that was a bloodbath of a season.
So they are definitely reacting to that with a minus
Yes,
200
yes,
number.
I wouldn't touch that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what you're saying is there are definitely opportunities out there to try to find those types of
Yeah,
value. The flip side is, I would say, uh, Miami versus teams like the Phillies. If that exists out there, I mean, they play the Phillies tough every year. It seems like. I think last year was the first time the Phillies won the season series in forever. So it's just something about these teams have like little bugaboos with,
Yeah.
certain teams. And there could be opportunity there because I would imagine the Marlins would be, plus money and matchups against the three bigger teams. So
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I haven't dug into any of those, but yeah.
cool. So we'll round it out here with some player props. Do you get into any of these at all, like home run leaders? Or for me, I was looking at home run head to heads, and I took a couple of these last year. I didn't.
Mhm.
I think I went. I didn't make money. I went like 1 and 2 on the head to heads. There is this something that you dabble in at all?
So I don't do any head-to-head ones, but I do go crazy in the player prop market. Last year, I think last year I was 9-2 on my player props, and it was
Wow.
plus 11 units, something like that. The only two I missed Michael Brantley batting average over 300, I think, and he got injured, was out for the year at 298.
Oh
And
my
then
god.
I lost Luis Robert over like 80 something RBIs. And he was outstanding when he played, but he was hurt. But I hit all the other ones. So I have a big player props card this year. I think I have about 15 plays on it. And my favorite one is not available anymore on any book, I don't think, but it was Carlos Rodon under 225 and a half strikeouts. That's my 3 unit player prop of the year. But my favorite one is still there. It's on Bovada. And this is my American League MVP pick. Is I have 2 units. I might make it 3 units on Corey Seager over 275 batting average. So over 275 average, Corey Seager.
Wow. Okay. So batting average. I don't
Hmm.
even know if I have that on
I don't know if they
DraftKings. No,
have
they
it
don't have
on
it.
DraftKings.
That's phenomenal. So Corey Seager over what was it? Two what? 75?
275. And I could do a whole podcast on Corey Seager and the Marlins. Like I have a crazy amount of stats that I have written up about Corey Seager, but yeah, and I won't do the whole spiel, but his he had a 283 expected batting average last year. His expected batting average for his career is 293. He has a 287 career average, and since 2020, he has lost 58 hits due to the shift. That's first in Major League Baseball by a lot. He was shifted against in 93% of his at bats in 2022. And if those of you don't know, there are shift restrictions this year. There's not a shift ban, but there has to be 2 infielders on each side of the infield, and they cannot be on the outfield grass when the ball is thrown. So, and then this is from, I think it's called Random Baseball Stats. It's Jeremy Frank on Twitter, but 90 outs of Corey Seager's were made on grounders or line drives to the 3-man side of the infield in 2022. That was first in baseball. So,
Wow. Holy
yeah,
cow.
I'm all in on Corey Seager this year.
That is super interesting. I mean, it looks like if anybody um, with like DraftKings, or I guess we'd have to find a book out there that offers the batting average one, but
Mm-hmm.
like a number of hits, I don't know if that correlates directly with batting average. Probably not apples to apples, but
It's a
um,
little sorry.
if you're on Corey Seager, maybe this is something else that you're interested in.
So the counting stats are a little different because in the instance that Corey Seager does get hurt halfway through the year, he's not
Mm,
cashing that hits prop.
phenomenal
But
point.
if he does get hurt and finishes the season batting 290, they'll still cash your
Yeah.
ticket.
There you go. See, that's the kind of direction that I'm looking for, Nick. That's phenomenal. And that's kind of where I was going to go when I was going to break down like my head to head
Mm-hmm.
philosophy. Like last year, I took one of the ones I missed was Vlad Jr. versus Pete Alonso.
Okay.
And Pete won that, uh, pretty much going away. I don't think Vlad really, I think he had like a 3 home run game or something early in the season. And then like Pete caught him and never looked back. My thought process was Pete Alonso's due to get hurt. Like, so,
Yeah.
so I was taking guys that I assumed I was betting against guys that
Mm-hmm.
I assumed were due for injury, or they're the way that they play just kind of lends itself to that, and it didn't really work out for me. But that exact point what you just made is my thought process there. So I don't know if that's worth, you know, two pennies, but um, I was looking at Juan Soto versus Ronald Acuna Jr., and I liked Juan Soto in this matchup, kind of because Ronald just, I don't know, he hasn't really been healthy forever, and Soto is just a freak. So
Yeah.
that's where my mind was going, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you think that that's silly, I will, bail on that whole mentality.
No, those are cool props too. But yeah. So actually, Juan Soto has an oblique injury. Just came out yesterday, so that
Holy
kind of
mackerel!
stinks a lot. I'm really excited
Yeah,
for San Diego. I have 2 units on their win over this year. But that one above it is kind of crazy. Juan Soto versus Matt Chapman home runs. I'm not a Matt Chapman guy. I would definitely like that Juan Soto one. And then I saw above you have Juan Soto over George Springer. I mean, George Springer is a guy who I can't remember the last time he played more than 120 games, and he's getting older
perfect.
too. But those aren't official plays or anything. But those are
Yeah,
the type of things like you're talking about. You want to talk about injuries? I mean, find Byron Buxton's prop and just whatever it is, hit the under. I mean, that dude
take
hasn't
the
played 100.
under.
He hasn't played 100 games since like 2017, I think.
There you go. Yeah, his name on he was just on one of these. Might have been the hits. So yeah, under on him would be a
Yeah,
good one to take.
whatever it is, sprinkle something on that.
I mean, injuries. To be honest, like that's really it's similar in most sports, right? Like football,
Mhm.
kind of a similar thing. Like what team can be the most healthy? I honestly feel like that's why the Phillies were good last year because their big horses were able to stay healthy for the
Mhm.
whole year. Essentially, I'm not talking about Harper, but
Yeah,
the pitching staff. And so sometimes you just get unlucky. Like if that oblique injury for Soto
it
turns out to
lingers.
be a big deal and it lingers, or the pitching staff of the Marlins that we were just
Yep.
pumping their tires, like a couple of those guys go down, it changes the whole complexity of the season. So
Mhm.
you're really, banking on the healthiness of these guys when you're taking the season bets. That's for sure. Um, how about awards? You mentioned a couple already. So uh, you actually no, you mentioned how you hit a couple, and you had Lazardo as your long shot 75-1 for Cy
Yeah.
Young in the NL. Um, how so rookie of the year was one
Mhm.
that my brother-in-law and I were like he was digging into that last year, and he was like, yeah, these are the guys we're going to go with, and it just seems like so difficult at this point in the year. So my question to you isn't exactly like if you have somebody you're into, great, but my overall question is like, do you wait a little bit, like, and see kind of how the first month or so of the season pans out and still get a guy at a decent clip, or do you feel like you're missing out if you don't take them now? You know what I mean? If that question makes sense.
Yes and no. Like so, last year, I mean, off the top of my head, I don't even think there were odds for Michael Harris and Spencer Strider for National League Rookie of the Year. So that's just an
Hmm.
example for that. But like J Rod, I got him at 6.5 to 1, so plus 650. The day before I got him, he was 7 to 1. Like a week after I got him, he had dropped down to like 4 or 5 to 1 because there was a lot more steam coming that he was going to make the big league club. And one thing that goes into that is if you remember the baseball lockout, one of the big things that the players were holding out for was the team control on players, and they made some incentives to having rookies on your opening day roster. So the
Hmm.
Seattle Mariners, they actually get an extra draft pick since J Rod was on their opening day roster and won Rookie of the Year. I think if you finish like top portion of Rookie of the Year voting, with a rookie that you started up at the beginning of the season, you get draft compensation for that. So a
Wow.
lot of these teams are going to be putting out their stud prospects at the beginning of the year, whereas the Cubs back in whenever Chris Bryant came up, you remember there was a big stink about him being held
Yep.
back a month because of team control. So that's not going to be a thing anymore too much.
Interesting.
Yeah, so one guy that his odds have changed for National League Rookie of the Year. So Jordan Walker is my National League Rookie, one of my National League Rookie of the Year picks. I got him at 9-1 last month. He's
Wow.
5-1 now. I would still take it because I do think he's going to win the award. But he is the closest thing to this year's Julio Rodriguez. I mean, he's a 20-year-old man. I mean, he's just a big leaguer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He has all the intangibles. The Cardinals love him. If you remember the Juan Soto sweepstakes in the middle of the season, the Cardinals were one of the teams that were all in on Juan Soto, and they were like, "Yeah, but you can't have Jordan Walker." So
Interesting. Okay.
he's going to be their guy, and they're very crowded. They have Lars Nootbaar, they have Dylan Carlson, they have Tyler O'Neill, they have Alec Burleson, and it's a kind of a crowded outfield, but they're going to make room for Jordan Walker to play. And he is a third base prospect, by the way, but he's not going to be playing third base as long as Nolan Arenado exists. So
where would they have him?
He's going to be playing outfield, and that's kind of their last checkbox or box to check in spring training. Is they kind of said in all these different things with beat reporters, they're like, yeah, the bat is there. He's ready to hit big league pitching. We just want to see how he plays in the outfield. So, and there's not been any news otherwise that he's doing great, and it seems like he's going to make the club. And even if he doesn't make the club out of the gate, injuries happen, and he'll be up, and maybe the odds will change. I would scoop it up if they drop after he doesn't make the club, but I think he will. So,
yeah, that's one that 5-1. You're thinking like, well, you're almost kind of hoping like don't make the club so that way it does drop a little bit and you scoop them like you said. But yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, with rookies, I don't have any inkling as to who would be somebody worth taking. So that's fantastic. And it looks like your guy Corbin over here is already
Corbin Carroll, yep.
he's already getting some love.
See, that's like I don't really touch anything around that area. Like Gunnar Henderson is plus 225 to win the American League Rookie of the Year. That's just stupid.
And like where's the fun in that, right? Like,
right? Yeah.
You cash that ticket, it's like not even that. You if you're hitting a long bet like this, it better be for a good clip.
Yeah, like I'll just go ahead and say it. I have two picks for each award. My two National League picks are Jordan Walker 6-1 and Miguel Vargas on the Dodgers at 6-1. So Jordan Walker 9-1, but Miguel Vargas at 6-1. I was mentioning Miguel Vargas earlier with the Dodgers. They're kind of giving him the keys. Gavin Lux's injury has opened up a spot. Like he's going to play every day. My American League Rookie of the Year picks are Tristan Casas at 9-1 of the Boston Red Sox and Logan O'Hoppe 15-1 of the LA Angels.
Logan O'Hoppe.
He's a
catching very well.
Oh yeah, ex-Philly prospect. That's right, for Brandon Marsh.
Yes, they traded him for Marsh.
Yeah,
and a lot of people. I mean, he was like the guy, but it was like, we've got JT, so what are we gonna do with him? But a lot of people were sad to see him go. So yeah, that would actually. Well, we have JT, so I'm not going to be too bent out of shape.
I like Brandon Marsh. I kind of thought it was stupid that the Angels traded Brandon Marsh, but I really like O'Hoppe. So that could probably go down as a trade that was a wash. It's like, yeah, both teams benefited from that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not even think about him until you just brought it up, but I guess he's going to be making the big league club, huh?
Yeah, and he is Shohei Ohtani's designated catcher for the year.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah,
all
so
right.
he's going to be up there, and
true stud.
They got anything from their catching last year. That catching position was atrocious for Los Angeles last year. So I'm all in on those two guys.
I like that.
That's for the Rookie of the Years. And now those are more steep than any of the others. I typically don't go below 10-1 on these awards, but rookies, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other awards that you're leaning on? Any particular pick that you want to talk on?
I can run through my awards card, and I won't spend forever talking about them. I'll just if there's a name that pops out, I'll talk about them. But I'll just run down. So for American League Cy Young, I have Christian Javier, 25-1, and I have Jeffrey Springs, 200-1.
Wow. All right, so you gotta. Oh, okay. He's on the Rays. All right.
Yep. If you're not sure who Jeffrey Springs is, just go visit his Baseball Savant page, and you'll find out very shortly who Jeffrey Springs is. So those are my American League Cy Young picks. My National League Cy Young picks are Jesus Luzardo, 75-1 of the Miami Marlins, and Dustin May, 100-1 of the Los Angeles Dodgers. They need him to step up this year. Like I said, their pitching is banged up. He's got to be the guy. So he's 70-1 on DraftKings. Obviously, I wouldn't be scared of that. I would definitely still take it there. And I don't even know if I see Jesus Luzardo on DraftKings.
I'm not seeing him on here. And Springs was not an option either on the other side. So you're going off the book here.
Yeah, so those are
fantastic. You got to keep your eyes peeled for when they hit.
Those odds are both on Bovada, and I think they have them on BetUS as well. So then my American League MVP, my two picks for that is Kyle Tucker, 33-1 of the Houston Astros, and Corey Seager, 40-1 of the Texas Rangers. Then my National League MVP picks, both of these might surprise you. These are two very controversial players, polarizing, I guess you could say. I have Fernando Tatis Jr., 10-1. I actually got him 16-1 in the offseason. So I have two tickets on him. And then Jazz Chisholm, 70-1.
Cover boy.
Yeah. So I'm
on the show.
All aboard the Jazz train. So that's my awards card. I hit 3 last year. I think we only need to hit 2 or 1. I mean, if Jeffrey Springs hits, then we're set. You know,
pays for the year. Yeah.
I sent the whole card to the group chat, and then my buddy John, like the last pick I sent was Jeffrey Springs, and he's like, "Thank you, Nick. That's what we needed. 200-1. That's what I want."
Yeah. I mean, I will be waiting for that to come available to the books here that I have. So that's really cool. Well, thank you for running through the futures card there, or the player awards.
Mm-hmm.
So let's I didn't realize I had win totals up that whole time. So I guess how do we round it out? Do you have anybody else that you want to call out? I know too early for World Series picks. Not going to, force you to throw anybody out there for that, but anything else you want to call out as we wrap it up here?
Yeah. So last year I just didn't have a great card as far as my futures. Like I had the Rays to win the American League. I had the Padres to win the National League. And just like looking at the card, looking at all the odds this year, it's nothing very attractive. Anything that I do like is in the 6-1 range. And there's just like I said, there's too much that goes on in the playoffs to be sitting on a 6-1 ticket with so many variables all year long. So like I said, I have about 15 player props on my season long card, about 13 team props on my team prop card, and all those awards picks. So I have a lot of those. If you want those, I will post them to Twitter later this week, but they've been posted on my Dub Club for about a month. So now we could talk about all that stuff later.
Well, let's get into that right now. Like how can people support you in what you do? Because I mean, following you on Twitter, people are definitely going to be making money. But what's the best way to support you if people are following you, they become fans? What can they do to support?
So yeah, recently I joined this website called Dub Club. I think it's dubclub.win is the website. And you can subscribe to my picks for that. and they actually get texted to you. So you don't have to go to Twitter to find them. And what I do is I make my bets, post them to my Dub Club immediately. And then later on in the day, I'll post them to Twitter. So that is my Dub Club. You get my picks immediately when I make them. So if anything happens within the hour between I make my bets and I post them to Twitter and odds flip, could have had them texted to you, you know? And then
Yeah.
I also very recently, within the month, I started contributing to a Discord. I had a guy, I think his name on Twitter is The Vegas Villain or Vegas Villain. He's a super nice dude. He has a Discord community called Baddies in Vegas, and they have a lot of great contributors. And I have a little channel in there called Nick's MLB Picks. And so same thing, I make my picks, I put them in Dub Club, I copy that, put it into Discord, and then eventually I'll post it to Twitter whenever I can get to it. But if I'm making a live bet in the season, like if I'm watching a game and I'm putting in a live play, that's going to Dub Club and Discord. Like there's not time to post it 3 different places, you know? So if you want my live bets, Dub Club right to your phone. I mean, if you're scrolling on Twitter, I guess you could have my Twitter notifications on and I could get it there, but sometimes the odds will flip pretty quick, especially one pitch can make a difference. But yeah, so the cool thing about the Discord is they actually do pay their contributors. My picks on Dub Club are all free. If you do go to subscribe, it'll ask you for some card information. It doesn't charge you anything. That's in case you want to subscribe to some handicappers who charge for their picks. But my Dub Club is completely free. The Discord, if you join that, I'll have some Thrive fantasy plays this year and some Boom fantasy plays like DFS stuff I'll be posting in my Discord. That one is you can donate $10 to join the Discord, or you just make a Boom account or a Thrive account and put $10 into it. So that one isn't necessarily free. They ask that you do put $10 into it. But it is cool because they do actually pay their contributors. So that one's kind of nice. But other than that, Twitter, Discord, and Dub Club.
Fantastic. I mean, I feel like you should be charging for picks.
I've been told that a lot, but
yeah.
I see guys charging for their picks, and then I see their season recaps, and I'm like, dude, people are paying you for that, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
it's a slippery slope for sure.
Yeah. So, and now having 2 kids now, a full-time job, if I get an opportunity that comes up where I could be making good money doing this, then I'm not gonna say no to that. But I'm gonna keep them free for as long as I can. But like I was saying about like people who do charge for picks, like I only do baseball. That's all I do year round. And I haven't posted this on Twitter because kind of would rub some people the wrong way. But I kind of make jokes to my buddies like if your baseball better that you get your picks from is watching March Madness and not watching spring training right now, you need to get a new baseball guy. Like
That's
I
a
think
good point.
there was a huge game going on this winter, and I was sitting there watching Dominican Winter League baseball, betting on that, and some people were teasing me on Twitter. They're like, "Dude, you're not watching this?" I'm like, no, man, there's baseball on. I
That's
just think
hilarious.
any way you can get an edge, you got to do it. And the people who they cap baseball for 6 months out of the year and then they just tune out of it for the whole off season, that's you're not getting any advantage there.
You wouldn't like that in most other areas of your life,
Yeah.
right? So whatever it is that you do, you wouldn't want your financial advisor or your mortgage guy, going off doing something else
Mm-hmm.
half the year.
Yep.
You need them fully bought in. So that's a great point that you're making there. And I get it, you need to get an edge somewhere because
Mm-hmm.
it's razor thin. Like baseball is a little bit different than NASCAR. There's it's gambling on baseball is probably a lot more popular. And every little tiny edge will give you a leg up.
It
Need to
becomes
take it.
Twitter becomes very flooded with baseball picks in the summer, and it's a lot of people who they're just guys who, oh, here's my 25 unit whale lock of the year.
Yeah.
It's like, what, dude? They're talking about baseball. If you put 25 units on anything in baseball, you're a clown.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They kind of expose themselves with stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
So, two questions for you,
Okay.
and so these are just like, out of thin air, quick answers. The first one is World Baseball Classic. Do we like it or we not like it?
I love the World Baseball Classic. Yeah, I've been locked into it. This is the first game I've missed. I don't even know what's happening in the Mexico Japan game right now.
So, my follow-up to that, I told you to be quick, but, my follow-up to that is it because this is an opportunity for you to get an edge like you were just talking about, or you actually like it, like, as a fan, like, America, let's go?
No, I like it as a fan. I do bet on it. Actually, I've had World Baseball Classic bets just about every day. But I was actually kind of bummed. This is very anti-American of me, but I was on Venezuela money line the other night, and I was kind of
Oh,
going at it on Twitter with some people. One dude lost a bunch of money and was in this group chat and was like, "I need a lock tomorrow. Like, give me a lock." And then somebody was like, "USA money line." I just gave it a thumbs down. I was like, "Dude, I'm sorry, but Venezuela's winning." And they were like, "Oh my gosh, they had that game. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Trey Turner when he hit that, and I think it was David Peralta was playing left field. He didn't even move. I was like, "There is no way that just happened."
I
So I
know.
felt very torn because I was like, "Yeah, let's go, like America," and then I was losing money. But it's just the way it goes. It's kind of the betting aspect of things. But I had a 3 unit lock on the Dominican to win it actually at plus 250. That's been a nightmare. So I've kind of made up some ground on it, but like I said, I'm not gonna tilt and get too low. I still keep my normal process. If I finish the World Baseball Classic down a unit, it's not the end of the world. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
Okay.
I love it for baseball. And I know you said it'd be quick. There's some Mets fans are definitely not a fan of it, and that all obviously really sucks for Edwin Diaz. And then you had Brandon Nimmo going on the record saying like, "Yeah, I'd rather be playing spring training games. Steve puts a lot of money into this team." Like 2 days later, he got hurt
He's
sliding into second base. And it's like you're playing baseball, and you have Mookie and all these guys. Like this is the most electric thing ever, and it really is. These games are awesome. It's just cool to be watching meaningful baseball in March.
okay. My brother-in-law and I have been bickering about the World Baseball Classic. I've just been like terrified that
Yeah,
somebody that I care about is going to get hurt, and then you see the thing with Diaz, and like
yeah,
that's just horrible. Like
it
I
really
can't
is.
imagine being a Mets fan.
No,
But then, like you said, Nimmo gives the other side of the argument the ammo that they need. So
yeah,
um, it's tough.
it's part of it, you know. Injuries just happen, and I saw one of my buddies who's a diehard Mets fan. And he just said, "Listen, like if Edwin Diaz got injured jumping, was it really going to hold up for the whole year?" And that was
Yeah,
kind of an interesting thought too,
yeah,
right?
it was going to go.
Like, which it's sad. It sucks. I mean, they just paid him $100 million,
Oh,
and
wild.
I mean he's like a spark plug for that team and was really exciting last year. So that's going to stink. But the Mets are still really good. They have a great bullpen. So Mets fans don't need to be too down. They still have an awesome team.
Yeah. The last question that I have for you: if I take over a sports book tomorrow,
Yep.
I am changing. You tell me, good or bad move. I'm changing the bet of total bases to include walks
Oh my
counting.
gosh.
Why doesn't it include? First of all, good or bad move? Do you hate that or love that?
I love that. Yeah. It's so
Okay,
frustrating. Like
I don't understand why it's not
a
part of it.
real
It's
baseball
part of the
player.
baseball game. Like
Yeah, it is.
walking, getting a walk is just as good as a hit, is what they say. Why doesn't it count? They're on first base.
Drives me insane. No, I love that move. The odd it would definitely change the odds. Like
Yes.
Juan Soto would be negative odds like every night. Max Muncy, guys who just are on base machines. But that's a lot of fantasy baseball leagues actually that I've been a part of have been switching to on base percentage rather than total bases and whatnot because it is frustrating. I remember I had Mike Trout. I mean, this was years ago. Nobody pitched to him because he was on the terrible Angels. He would have like 2 walks every night. And then I'd look at his stats. He'd be 0 for 2, 0 total bases. I'd be ripping
Yeah.
my hair out.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's the case. It seems like it would make games more fun. I know it would change
Mhm.
the odds, like you said, but like that's what you're betting for.
Yeah.
Like you're betting to that. So yeah, never understood that in baseball gambling world, but I just needed to get confirmation that that would make people happy. So yeah, maybe I'll start complaining left and right. We'll see if it makes a difference. Um, Nick, I really appreciate you spending time, man. This has been, you know, a ton of, but an hour and a half in here that flew by. You're dropping picks left and right here, really getting me bolstered for the season. Can't thank you enough. And when we talked about when to come on, you had suggested, I was saying, hey, babe, next week because the opening day is March
Mhm.
30th. You said, how about a week before? So people have some time to absorb it. And that's fantastic. Like, I didn't think that you would want to come on sooner. That's, I just can't thank you enough. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've been really excited for this. So it's cool to like get to mash up both of those different things with NASCAR and baseball, and what Chris and Ian do with NASCAR and golf. It's nice to bring things together and I guess be a part of a different audience and whatnot. So thank you for having me, Phil.
Absolutely. Now, I guess final last question. Do you have a pick this week for NASCAR or have you given it a thought at all? They're in Coda. They'll be rounding the turns. We're going to be talking rounding the bases here. So, do you have a pick yet, or wait
I
for Chris to send
I
something?
I do what I'm told. Chris puts the podcast out. I plug it in,
Fantastic.
make the click. Same with Ian. I just yeah, I used to be all in on it with them. Not all in as Chris and everybody, but I just when I put this much time into baseball, especially during the season, like Chris will be in the group chat, blah blah blah. This dude, we need a green, like we need a caution here, whatnot. And I'm just like, all right, the Rays are in the bottom of the ninth right now.
Yeah.
So it gets crazy, and I just make the clicks and boom. So, but I imagine
Yeah.
a road course. I don't know. I picked Daniel Suarez last week. That was a terrible pick, but isn't he good at road courses or
He
no?
won. He won a road course
That's
last
what I
year,
thought.
and
Okay,
Suarez wasn't a bad pick. Other than the fact that he got clipped and wrecked out, but it wasn't his fault. So, yeah, maybe Suarez.
that'll be
I
my
I'll
pick
have to
then.
dig into
Daniel
him a little
Suarez.
bit. Yeah, the odds have not come out yet for this week. So, people listening to this, we are recording on Monday night. I'll be recording the previous part of the podcast on Tuesday night. So, yeah, we don't know what the odds are on Suarez, but hey, we'll have to throw a little something on.
I just got this idea because some people love these things. I said I'm not a parlay guy, but if Mexico does win, and I haven't seen the score, but if Mexico wins this World Baseball Classic game, that could be a fun little parlay. Daniel Suarez and Mexico to win the World Baseball Classic. I know it's
Holy
anti-American,
mackerel.
but that'd be fun because Daniel Suarez is from Mexico, right?
He sure is.
Yeah, so
Man,
that'd be a
see, Nick,
we could
I'm
do
all
a little
about the
collab.
gambling gods, man. I'm all about the gambling gods. And, if they're on vacation in Cabo this week, we got to take advantage of it. So,
Let's do it, man.
um, yeah, that would be fun. I would parlay something like that. It's fantastic. All right. Well, Nick, thanks again. And I hope, to have you on again for, maybe for the playoffs or definitely, have to make it a staple, kicking off the season every year, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can't thank you enough. This was a blast.
Sure thing.